Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our conference today. And I'm very excited with our guest speaker. Today we have with us Dr. Timothy Russell. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the ITA, the Intercollegiate Tennis Association. Welcome, Tim.
Hey, it's great to be with you all.
Well, I'm very happy to have you here. First of all, we haven't met personally. I know who you are, and I've been involved in this college recruiting business for 26 years. So it's a very big honor for me to be talking to you today. So I'm very happy that we're doing this.
Well, I'm honored as well.
Okay, great. So before we start, I want to give a brief introduction so people know more about your background. And you know, Dr. Russell has spent over 30 years in the education industry as a professor of Arizona State, Ohio State University, and the University of Rochester. In addition, you have also have highly academic achievements. You have also had a leadership role in the development of renowned American nonprofit institutions. And you're very well known in the tennis industry. You have done a lot of volunteer work, and you have been inducted into the Tennis Hall of Fame as the ITA Men's Collegiate, USTA Southwest, and USTA Central Arizona. And I have to say, you have done an amazing job with the ITA, so congratulations for that.
Well, thank you very, very much. It's a great pleasure and joy to come to work every day on behalf of higher education and coaches and student athletes.
I wish I didn't have to talk about the pandemic, and we have heard that word so much, but I think we're going to have to address that because it's a reality today, and I know you're working very hard through this. So I'm gonna start talking a little bit about the challenges that college tennis is facing, but then I also want to have to talk about the positive and the opportunities that this brings among colleges, players, and parents. But we know, Tim, that since the pandemic came to us, that there's been over 40 college teams, about 20 men, 20 women, more or less, that have closed down their programs. Do you think the worst is over, or do you expect some more teams to shut down the program?
So you're correct that we have to deal with the world in which we live. Let me start by saying that before COVID-19, I think that college tennis had never been stronger. The ITA has about 1,200 schools, 1,700 programs, 3,000 coaches, about 19,000 student athletes, and 1,500 officials. So it's never a good day to lose a college tennis program. But I need to make sure that the audience knows that tennis is not alone. Obviously, we're not happy when swimming or wrestling or volleyball, lacrosse, baseball is cut, but this was part of a larger issue. So people who are tennis fans shouldn't think that tennis is just being singled out, and we actually still have lots of very strong programs. Everyone needs to know that the ITA works on behalf of NCAA Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA, and junior college. So the context is unfortunate. I know that it's an unhappy day for any president or AD to cut a program, but you asked me specifically if I think the worst is over, and I'm hoping so, because I've written a piece that people can read on our ITA website where I actually talk about this at greater length, and I hope that nobody uses this pandemic as an excuse to cut a program. And the reality is tennis is part of a large landscape for intercollegiate athletics, and hopefully the worst is in fact over.
Yeah, and I did read your article. It was a really good one. And we know that every year, for any reason other than a pandemic, college teams tend to have to make a decision, you know, and sometimes it's a financial decision. It has nothing to do with pandemic. So I agree with you. I think we should not see any more college teams closing down. And in fact, the next question has to do with the efforts that the ITA and the USTA are doing together with coaches, because I know coaches are getting together, players are getting together, and trying to see if there's any form or shape that they could reinstate these teams and get back their team together and get back the athletic department to reinstate these teams. Have you heard about that? Do you think there's a chance?
So great question. I'm now starting my 6th year, and I can tell you that up until the pandemic, the good news is for the last 5 years, we actually had a net gain of 28 college tennis programs. And so I hope we're heading back in that direction. Unfortunately, I believe the honest answer to your question is once a program is cut, sadly, it's actually very hard to get it back. So just so the audience knows what we're doing at the ITA, we're trying to actually be what I like to call an architect upstream, so we don't have to be a plumber downstream. So we're working with our coaches on what we call a health index. It's got about 40 questions, and it asks our coaches to honestly assess their program to see if, in fact, they might be in trouble. Because what we've learned is once they're cut, it's very hard to get them back. Occasionally, a president might say, oh, if you raise $1 million in a week, you might be able to bring it back. But my understanding for the last 5 years is that those kind of success stories are few and far between. So my advice to both college coaches and programs is that they need to be so embedded on their campus and in their community that there's no way that an athletic director or a president or a board of trustees would ever think about cutting them, because by the time they get cut, it's usually too late to bring them back. So we're working really hard to solidify the programs on their campuses and in their communities so that nobody would think of cutting them.
And I read you raised a very valuable question about, should we think about the non-revenue sports, or should we make some changes in the revenue sports, which absorb a lot of the budgets with the high-paid coaching staff and assistant coaches and all the budgets that they run? So that's a question that a lot of schools need to ask.
Yeah, so we won't get into too much of the weeds, but I believe there's been a nuclear arms race to the point where football and basketball have consumed too many resources. So again, I appreciate you reading the article, but one other thing that we talked about with our coaches is how you think about this phrase non-revenue, because a lot of people think of revenue of only being ticket income or TV rights or concessions or something, but you can have revenue in the form of tuition, for example. So if all of a sudden, we have 6 guys on a team paying $60,000 to come to a school, that's a lot of money for a university. And what our coaches and parents and student athletes have to do is to change the conversation, so we're not just thinking of revenue as big football stadiums, because while there's a lot of tennis scholarships out there across many divisions, there's still students paying for the opportunity to go to school and play on a tennis team.
Yeah, absolutely right. Tim, we talk to coaches every day, and even in this uncertain times, they seem to continue to do their business as always. They're recruiting, they're very active. They're looking for players, and they're assuming that everything is going to go as normal. What do you perceive, because obviously you also have all these coaches in your backyard, what do you perceive as their mindset at this time? Do you feel they're worried, they are concerned, or they're very positive? What is your feeling?
So great question, and wonderful to have a conversation with you as somebody who has your finger on the pulse. I would say that they are chomping at the bit to get back on the court and to recruit in person. You got to remember, these people love tennis. We all love tennis. They are great coaches, teachers, leaders, and this is a once in a generation, once in 100-year activity. Hopefully it will pass. There are some pictures of the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic where people were wearing masks at football games, and we're all gonna get through this. And right now I can tell you that our coaches are disappointed, they're a little frustrated, but mostly they have this pent-up energy that they want to get back with their players on court. They want to be recruiting the next generation. And I'm sure we can continue the conversation about how prospective athletes communicate with these coaches, but they're still doing those parts of their job. So just know that they're as excited to get back on the court as the young high school players are to get to college.
Yeah, we feel the same way. And most of the students and the parents that are right now listening to you are probably going to go to college in 2022, 2023, 2021. But we do have a lot of our clients who are going to college this same month. Can you describe, if you can, how does college tennis look like this fall and in the spring 2021? What can they expect?
Yeah, terrific question. So the ITA, just let you know how I'm answering this question. The ITA is not only a coaches association, but we're the governing body. So we do the rules, we do the rankings, we do officials. So our staff and our coaches have been having conversations just related to this question. Usually the ITA runs a series of about 88 regional tournaments in the fall across all divisions. We have a series of national tournaments, including the All-American Championships in Tulsa, an Oracle Masters event that's been in Malibu, California, and our National Fall Championships. This will be a very different fall. So the All-American Championship has been canceled because the University of Tulsa and their conference are not allowing tennis competition. Some ITA regionals will continue. If people are following, many D3 schools are not playing in the fall. D2 is mixed, D1 is mixed. NAIA is still playing. So our fall ITA Cup, which is usually D2, 3, NAIA, and junior college, will only feature NAIA teams this year. But one thing that the ITA's done, recognizing that there is a big pent-up demand to compete on the tennis court, is we have instituted a new ITA tour that we're calling our fall circuit that's going to build on our very successful summer circuit. So there's going to be opportunities for juniors to compete against college players and young professionals. We just closed the application deadline for that on Sunday. People should be on our website looking for the schedule, but it's going to run between September 18th and the end of November. And right now we're thinking there might be as many as 200 tournaments. So we're trying to make sure that we're putting on events that are very safe. We're always concerned about health and safety, welfare of student athletes. We're making sure that we're complying with local, state, federal health guidelines. We're working closely with USTA and NCAA and ITF medical groups. Our summer circuit turned out to be a very safe place to play. We're trying to demonstrate, one, that college tennis is strong, and two, that tennis is a safe social distancing sport. So we will not have all the regionals we've had in the past, but this new series of tournaments will enable both college players and high school players to compete in ITA events. So the spring, everybody keeps talking like the coronavirus problem is going to be solved. Everybody who's following college sports, everybody's talking about pushing things to the spring. I think we're all hoping that, but I just gave a talk to our coaches this morning where I said, I think we have to be pondering what the spring might look like if the pandemic doesn't have a vaccine or therapeutics. If you've been following college sports, everybody's been kind of making incremental kicks of the can down the road. First, we were supposed to know by June 1st about football, then June 15th, and then August 1st came around. I think the spring's going to be the same, but first and foremost, everybody wants young athletes to be safe, and this is where the ITA is going to try to take a leadership role. As most people know, by the time tennis gets to the spring, we finish our ITA team indoors, and then it really is conference play and the NCAA NAIA championship. So the ITA stops events in February. So we're all hoping the spring will look normal, but I'm not sure.
Well, I have to say that even though tennis is our main sport, we do deal with some other sports, and we do follow a lot of sports, especially the college sports. And I could tell you that what you guys are doing with tennis, it's probably leading the way, and other sports are following, because you haven't sat down and just relax and just wait to see what's going to happen. You have always been in front and trying to take initiative and finding solutions and being positive. So I could really commend you for doing that. Tim,
thank you.
So your advice, and now trying to be in the positive way with the players, and players listen to us, and parents, and these are kids who want to get recruited, and they're desperate because, especially here in the U.S., we're already starting to see the tournaments where you just talked about the circuit, the fall circuit. I think it's a great idea. Other countries are not as fortunate. You know, they are still shut down, and not much tennis been playing. So what would be your advice for those kids who cannot go out and play, they cannot go to showcases, they cannot visit campuses, coaches cannot travel? What would be your advice at this point for the next few months?
So terrific question. So part of this is the same advice I've been giving since my son, Jeff Russell, who works for the USTA Player Development, was a junior. He was a three-time Arizona high school champion. He was a top 20, top 10 American junior. And the same advice, forget about coronavirus, just keep getting better. Just keep getting better. And in some respect, I would suggest that you use this as an opportunity to build your game. I could talk a lot with you, Thomas, and your audience about some of my concerns about how the junior tennis world has evolved, with kids actually probably playing too many events, chasing points, etc. And sometimes they haven't built their game. So this could be a perfect opportunity to not only build on your strengths, but if you need to be, you know, building your backhand or a new serve or the new kick serve, or you want to become a serve and volleyer or whatever, that would be great. The second thing is to recognize that coronavirus, again aside, we now live in a brave new world where you can communicate with coaches in different ways. They don't necessarily have to see you. You can create videos. They can be done safely with a hitting partner. You can tell your story in different ways. But I would also encourage people to continue with their academic studies, because as you know, Thomas, in your world, we want to not only be good tennis players, but also good students. And especially I would say that to the highly ranked boys who might be listening, because with only 4.5 scholarships with D1, coaches are looking for people who are good students as well, so that they might get some academic aid in addition. So I think one of the things that sports teaches us is to be resilient. This is an opportunity to keep your head up, to be positive, not to be glum, not to be worried. Recognize that everybody's in the same situation, and this is an opportunity for you to distinguish yourself. You know, we could do a whole session on recruiting, but one of the things I know is that our coaches are not only looking for good players and good students, they're looking for leaders. They're looking for people who just have a passion to play. They want people who want to compete. It's not just about getting the scholarship. It's about loving tennis as a sport of a lifetime. So wake up every day, be positive, do your studies, also build just your physicality. Make sure you're running, you're doing what appropriate strength and conditioning that your coach is. You might have more time on your hands than you thought, and then figure out how to tell your story that's better than everybody else's story. Why are you the person who came through the pandemic ready to be the next star in an American college tennis team?
And we have seen in the last 5-6 months how many more players we're working with, because they have taken the time, since they can't be outside playing. Now with the families, they have taken the time to plan their college, to think about it, to have the conversation with parents. So we think within everything has been very positive. And when we talk to coaches, Tim, we are finding out now that coaches spend so much time talking to us rather than just running around because they got to go on the court, they got to go and travel. You know, now they're just dedicating more time to getting to know the players, to spending time researching. So I think it's, like you say, it's a very large opportunity considering everything that's happening. So NCAA, we always sit down and wait. What is the NCAA going to decide? You know, we talk about the dead period. We talk about programs here and there. How much of a, how do you work with the NCAA? Does the NCAA sit down with the ITA? Is this a close relationship where decisions are made together, or how does that relationship work?
So another great question. You're just full of great questions today, Thomas. So just so everybody understands, there's like a triangle here. There's the NCAA, that's the governing body of all of college sports, not just tennis, all of sports. There's a coaches association for every sport. So we're the tennis coaches. And then there's a national governing body. So if you're an American student, you should know the USTA is the governing body of tennis in America. If you're in Great Britain, you know the LTA or the French Federation or Australia. So we're just part of a triangle here. So we have a very close relationship with the NCAA, but everybody needs to recognize that they are a very large organization. So I mentioned we have about 19,000 student athletes who play tennis. They're having about 400,000 or 500,000 students that they're overseeing. So they've got all of these 36 sports, all these championships. So a lot of decisions they're making. But so people understand your question about how decisions are made, the NCAA does reach out to all the coaches associations and asks our opinion, but it's not just tennis giving the opinion. It's volleyball, it's basketball, it's rowing, it's swimming, etc. So they're having to make decisions on what they think is best for everyone. If they just listen to me, for example, they've made some decisions that I personally wasn't a fan of. I'll give you one example. When last year's championships were canceled and they decided that all seniors were getting another year of eligibility, I actually was not a fan of that. And I'll tell you in the tennis world why. I mean, if you are a upcoming recruit and all of a sudden you think you're going to a school where you're going to have a playing spot and all of a sudden 3 seniors are back, that changes things not only for 1 year, but for a number of years. And to my point about the spring, there's nothing that says we might not come to this spring again. So they can't just keep giving everybody years of eligibility. And I'll tell you how some of the dominoes would fall. So when they gave that eligibility, it then required the schools to decide if they were going to pay for the scholarships again. So right when schools are having financial problems, they're also having to raise additional money. So yes, the NCAA listens to coaches associations, but they don't necessarily just listen to somebody like Tim Russell. It's a big bureaucratic organization, but I can assure you they're trying to do their best on behalf of not only student athletes, but universities and sports in general.
Okay, well, that's great to know. Tim, a couple more questions. Talk about any initiatives that the ITA is planning and launching together with all the tennis associations, and I'm sure with the USTA, of course. Can you expand on that so our audience can learn about that?
Sure. So one of the things I try to do in my role is not only execute on our current tactics and strategy, but to think long term. What will college tennis look like in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? And some of the things that have come out of the coronavirus are things like more regional play, more local play. People aren't going to be flying far in a field to get better. So some of the initiatives we're working on are not only things like the new fall circuit with UTR, but we're in conversations with other tennis associations about what might a tennis circuit look like in the future where top juniors, college players, recent college graduates, and professionals all play against each other on a more regular basis. You know, one of the things I said in an earlier answer was people just need to get better. Right now, the tennis ecosystem is not particularly economically viable. People have to spend too much money to fly around. If we could build a better ecosystem where more clusters of players are competing at different levels, you know, if you're a 14-year-old, you shouldn't be flying off to play another 14-year-old if you can't beat a 16-year-old down the street. And likewise, if you're 18, you shouldn't have to fly if there's pros in town. So we're working on initiatives of what might the future competition pathways look like. That's one thing. We're working with groups on what different technology looks like in terms of tournament management systems and the like. We're working on partnerships about what might careers in tennis look like. I mean, if you think down the road, not just about going to college to play tennis, there's going to be a whole generation of people who work in the tennis industry who are going to retire, not just on-court pros, but people working at Wilson or people working at IMG. So we're trying to think about not only helping students such as yours, Thomas, get to college, but what are they going to do once they leave college? Tennis is a wonderful sport of a lifetime, so we're trying to think about the future from a competitive pathway, from a technological pathway, and things like career pathways as well.
My last question, Tim, what is Tim Russell's dream?
Wow, that's a nice question. So first of all, I just love tennis. I'm a tennis junkie. I actually didn't play college tennis. I've played tennis since I was 9 years old. I'm the kind of guy who sat at the grandstand at the US Open for 5 hours to watch a match. I don't care if I'm watching Fed and Nadal or two 12-year-olds battle or a bunch of college players. I just love tennis. So I think my dream would see our sport grow and thrive, and not only have the bottom of the pyramid have more juniors, but college tennis to remain strong, and then all these people to continue as a sport of a lifetime, because tennis is absolutely an amazing sport, which is why I come to work so excited every day.
Tim, you know, over the years, I have got to know people like Dennis Vandermeer, which I'm sure you know. I had a chance to talk to Arthur Ashe. I'm a good friend of, I know Jim Lower, I've talked to, I know Dave Fish real well, and Greg Patton, people that you know. And what I have learned over these years is that these people are very knowledgeable, they're pioneers, and they study, but they also, you know, bring originality. But mostly of all, they're passionate. They're passionate. And I think you have those same qualities. I could feel it from you. So I'm going to put you in that group. And I want to thank you for the time that you spent with us. And believe me, you'll be hearing from us more. And I'm sure the audience was very well educated from what you had to say. And I think they're going to be even more positive of all the good messages you gave today. So I want to thank you on behalf of all the tennis community in the U.S., outside the U.S., at the higher level, the junior level, the beginner level, because I think you're very good for tennis, Tim.
Well, thank you. I'm just honored to be in the group that you named, and I'm honored to be here with you today, and we thank you for what you do. It really does take a village, as people like to say. The tennis community is a wonderful one, and it's been a great joy to spend time with you.
Thank you, Tim. All the best.
All right. Be well.
Bye-bye. Thank you.